The thermometer stopped working at 61 degrees. Its mercury had nowhere left to go, the glass tube insufficient for temperatures that should not exist anywhere humans dare to live. Omar watched it fail on what he would later describe as an ordinary Tuesday morning. Ordinary meaning he had already buried 3 of his goats who had not survived the night. Ordinary meaning the well had produced only half its usual water. Ordinary meaning he had accepted, once again, that this might be the day the desert finally won. He is 79 years old. He has been alone for 11 years. And every single morning, he wakes up and asks himself the same question: why do I keep going? The answer he has found, through more than a decade of solitude in the most hostile environment on Earth, is one that will haunt you long after this story ends. Because the reason Omar survives has nothing to do with willpower, nothing to do with stubbornness, and nothing to do with the simple mechanics of staying alive. It has everything to do with a promise he made to a dying woman, a promise that transformed mere existence into a sacred duty. And it begins with 3 words she whispered with her final breath: live for both. Omar was not always a man of the deep desert. In his youth, he lived in a town of moderate size, worked as a carpenter, and enjoyed the simple pleasures of community life: market days, evening gatherings, the rhythm of seasons marked by festivals and celebrations. He was unremarkable in most ways: average height, average build, average ambitions. He wanted a wife, children, a business he could pass down to his sons, and enough money to live comfortably without extravagance. These were not extraordinary dreams. They were the dreams of millions of men across the world, then and now. He met Nadia when he was 23 years old, at a wedding where they were both guests of the groom's family. She was 20, with intelligent eyes and a laugh that seemed to brighten whatever room she occupied. They spoke for only a few minutes that first meeting. Propriety demanded distance between unmarried men and women, but those few minutes were enough. Omar knew, with a certainty he had never felt about anything, that this was the woman he would marry. The courtship took 2 years, conducted through letters carried by trusted intermediaries and brief, chaperoned meetings that left both parties frustrated by their inability to speak freely. But when they finally wed, in a ceremony that Omar still remembers in vivid detail, it was worth every moment of waiting. She made me better, Omar told me, his voice carrying across the years with surprising strength. Not in the way people usually mean when they say such things. She did not change me or fix me. She simply made more of me visible, parts one had not known existed, qualities I had not recognized in myself. With Nadia, I discovered that I could be brave, that I could be patient, that I could love with an intensity that frightened me sometimes. Their marriage produced 2 sons and a daughter, each of whom carried pieces of both parents in their faces and temperaments. The boys had Omar's quiet determination. The daughter had Nadia's radiant spirit. For nearly 40 years, they built a life together that was, in Omar's words, not exciting but deeply satisfying. They faced challenges, financial struggles, health scares, the death of parents and siblings, but they faced them together, and that togetherness made everything bearable. The decision to move to the deep desert came in their early 60s, triggered by circumstances that Omar still struggles to explain. The town had changed, he said. Or perhaps we had changed. The children were grown, building their own lives in distant cities. The carpenter shop no longer needed my hands. I had hired young men who could do the work faster and better than my aging body allowed. Nadia and I looked at each other one morning and realized that we had nothing left to do except wait for death. And waiting for death in a place full of memories seemed unbearable. They sold their home, distributed most of their possessions to their children, and traveled deep into the Sahara to a region where Nadia's ancestors had once lived as nomads. They found a location that spoke to something ancient in both their souls, a rocky outcropping that provided natural shelter, a well that still produced water, and silence so complete that it felt like a physical presence. We built our home with our own hands, Omar recalled. It took us almost a year. We were not young, and the work was difficult, but there was something purifying about it. Every brick we laid was a choice. Every wall we raised was a statement. We were saying, to ourselves and to the world, that we would live the final chapters of our lives on our own terms. For 16 years, Omar and Nadia lived in that remote compound, completely isolated from the world they had left behind. Their children visited when they could, which was not often. The journey was long and difficult, and their own lives were consuming. Neighbors did not exist. The nearest other habitation was more than 100 kilometers away. They had only each other, and for 16 years, that was enough. They developed routines that gave structure to their days. Morning prayers at dawn, followed by the physical tasks necessary for survival: checking the well, tending the small garden, caring for the goats that provided milk and occasional meat. Afternoons were spent in rest and conversation, sharing memories and thoughts and the quiet intimacy that decades of marriage had cultivated. Evenings brought more prayers, simple meals, and the profound peace of watching the sun set over the dunes. "People ask me if we were lonely," Omar said. "They cannot understand how two people could live so far from everything and not feel the absence of society. But Nadia and I did not experience absence. We experienced presence, presence of each other, presence of the desert, presence of something larger than ourselves that we could feel in silence. Loneliness requires the sense that something is missing. We had everything we needed." Nadia's illness announced itself subtly, with symptoms that both of them initially dismissed. Fatigue that lasted longer than it should. A cough that would not quite go away. Weight loss that Nadia attributed to reduced appetite in the heat. By the time they acknowledged that something was seriously wrong, it was too late to seek treatment that might have made a difference. "She knew before I did," Omar said. "Perhaps she knew from the beginning and chose not to tell me. She was always protecting me like that, shielding me from truths she thought I could not handle. When she finally admitted how sick she was, the cancer had spread beyond any hope of recovery. They faced her dying together, just as they had faced everything else. There were no doctors to consult, no hospitals to visit, no treatments to try. There was only the slow progression of a disease that would not be stopped, and two people making the most of whatever time remained. We talked more in those final months than we had talked in years," Omar remembered. "Not about the illness. There was nothing useful to say about that. We talked about our life together. Every memory we could summon, every moment that had mattered, every small thing that we had done right or wrong or simply done. We were writing the final chapter of our story, and we wanted to get every word right." Nadia died on a morning in late autumn, when the temperature had dropped to something almost comfortable. She had been declining for days, her body gradually surrendering to the inevitable, but her mind remained sharp until the very end. Omar was holding her hand when she spoke her final words: "Live for both." 3 words that would become Omar's entire purpose for the next 11 years. I arrived at Omar's compound on a day when the temperature exceeded 61 degrees, a fact I know only because my own equipment, unlike Omar's broken thermometer, was designed for extreme conditions. The journey had taken me nearly a week, and I had almost turned back twice when the challenges seemed insurmountable. But something kept pushing me forward, a sense that what waited at the end of this journey was worth whatever suffering the path required. Omar was waiting for me outside his home, as if he had known I was coming. Later, he would explain that he had spotted my vehicle from more than 5 kilometers away, the dust plume visible against the empty horizon. He had been waiting for hours by the time I arrived, sitting in the shade of his modest structure, his eyes fixed on the approaching disturbance in his normally unchanging landscape. "You were the first visitor in 3 years, he said as I climbed out of my vehicle. "The last one was a nomad who had gotten lost and was half dead from dehydration. I saved his life. He promised to return with supplies as payment. He never came back." There was no bitterness in his voice, just a statement of fact, delivered with the matter-of-factness of someone who had long ago stopped expecting anything from the outside world. "I am a researcher," I explained. "I study isolated communities, trying to understand how people survive in extreme conditions." Omar nodded slowly. "Then you have come to the right place. I am extremely isolated, and my conditions are extremely extreme. Come inside. I will make tea." Over the following days, I learned the rhythms of Omar's extraordinary existence. His life was structured around tasks that, in their simplicity, took on an almost ritualistic significance. Each morning, he woke before dawn, the only time when the temperature was truly bearable, and performed his prayers on the same mat where he and Nadia had prayed together for 16 years. He still prayed for 2, reciting her portions of the prayers as well as his own. "She asked me to," he explained when I questioned this practice. "In those final days, when she knew she would not be able to pray anymore, she asked me to pray for both of us. I have not missed a single day since." After prayers, he would check his water supply. The well that had served them for so many years was gradually failing, producing less each season. Omar had calculated, with grim precision, that it would run dry within 5 years. He did not seem troubled by this projection. 5 years is a long time, he said. Many things can happen in 5 years. Perhaps the water will return. Perhaps I will die before it runs out. Perhaps some other solution will present itself. Worrying about it now would only poison the days I have left. His diet was minimal: dates, flatbread, dried meat from the last of his goats, but he ate with a kind of reverence that suggested each meal was a sacred act. He always prepared 2 portions, setting one aside for Nadia as he had done every day since her death. "She is not here to eat it," he acknowledged. "I know that. But the act of preparing her portion keeps her present in my life. It is a way of honoring her request to live for both." The days followed a pattern that would have seemed monotonous to anyone accustomed to the variety of modern life. But within that pattern, Omar had found a profound peace that radiated from him like heat from the desert sand. "People think that solitude is the opposite of companionship," he told me one evening as we sat outside watching the stars emerge. "They believe that being alone means being without connection. But I have never felt disconnected. Nadia is with me in everything I do. When I prepare food, I remember the meals we shared. When I work in the garden, I remember her hands in the same soil. When I watch the sunset, I see it with her eyes as well as my own. She lives through me because I am living for both." I ask him about the practical challenges of his existence: the extreme heat, the limited resources, the absence of medical care or emergency assistance. He acknowledged these challenges with a shrug. "The heat is difficult, yes. There are days when I think my body will simply stop functioning, when every breath feels like an accomplishment. But I have adapted. I know how to conserve energy, how to find shade, how to survive what should not be survivable. The lack of resources is more concerning, particularly the water. But I have enough for now. And for now is the only time that exists. And if you became ill? If something happened that you could not handle alone?" Omar smiled, a peaceful smile that held no fear. "Then I would die," he said simply. "I am 79 years old. I have outlived my wife, my parents, my siblings, and several of my friends. Death is not a stranger to me. It is a companion I have been expecting for many years. When it comes, I will greet it as I would greet an old friend, with acceptance and perhaps even relief. Relief. Relief because I will finally be able to stop living for both. Nadia asked me to carry her forward, to experience life on her behalf as well as my own. I have done this faithfully for 11 years, but it is a heavy burden. To see everything twice, to feel everything twice, to be present in every moment for 2 people instead of 1. When I die, I will set that burden down at last, and I will see her again. We will be together as we were always meant to be." I spent 2 weeks with Omar, learning his routines, sharing his meals, listening to his stories. He spoke of Nadia constantly, not with the raw grief of recent loss, but with the warm familiarity of someone discussing a partner who had simply stepped out of the room. He showed me photographs, carefully preserved despite the harsh conditions. He shared memories that spanned decades, each one polished smooth by years of retelling. But what struck me most was not his devotion to his wife's memory. It was the quality of presence he brought to every moment of his life. Despite his isolation, despite his age, despite the harsh conditions that would have broken most people, Omar was genuinely alive in a way that few people ever achieve. He noticed the subtle changes in the wind that signaled weather shift days in advance. He could identify the tracks of animals I did not even know existed in the region. He appreciated the beauty of sunrises and sunsets with an intensity that suggested he was seeing them for the first time, every time. And in our conversations, he listened with complete attention, as if my words were the most important sounds in the universe. Nadia taught me this, he explained when I commented on his presence. She said that most people sleep through their lives, going through motions without really experiencing anything. She refused to live that way. She insisted on being awake, truly awake, for every moment. And she made me promise that I would do the same, especially after she was gone. Live for both. Exactly. To live for both means more than just surviving. It means experiencing life with double intensity, double appreciation, double awareness. It means seeing the world through her eyes as well as my own. It means never wasting a moment, because every moment is precious, twice as precious as it would be for someone living only for themselves. On my final evening with Omar, we sat together watching the stars emerge, something we had done every night of my stay, but which felt different knowing it was the last time. "You will write about me," Omar said. It was not a question. "If you permit it." He nodded slowly. "I permit it. But I want you to understand something. so that you can explain it to others who will never come here, who will never understand what this life is really like. Tell me." He was silent for a long moment, gathering his thoughts. "People will read my story and feel sorry for me," he said finally. "They will see an old man alone in the desert, living in conditions that seem brutal and primitive. They will wonder why I do not leave, why I do not seek comfort and companionship in the world of the living. They will think I am trapped here by stubbornness or senility or some failure of imagination." He turned to look at me directly, his eyes bright in the starlight. "I want you to tell them that they are wrong. I am not trapped here. I chose this life. I chose it because this is where I can be closest to Nadia, in the home we built together, on the land she loved, in the silence where I can still hear her voice. I chose it because living for both is not a burden but a privilege, the greatest privilege I have ever known. And I chose it because one day, when my time comes, I will be buried beside her, and our bones will rest together in this place we made sacred through decades of love." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Tell them that I am not lonely. Tell them that I am not suffering. Tell them that every sunrise is a gift I receive on Nadia's behalf, every sunset a treasure I am holding for her until we meet again. Tell them that I have found, in the heart of this burning desert, something that most people spend their entire lives searching for and never find." "What is that?" He smiled, the same peaceful smile I had seen so many times during my stay. "Peace," he said. "True peace. The peace of knowing exactly who you are, exactly why you exist, and exactly what you are living for. There is no greater treasure in this world or any other." I left Omar the next morning, carrying with me memories and recordings and photographs that would form the basis of this story. As I drove away, I watched his figure grow smaller in my rearview mirror, a solitary man standing at the edge of his compound, one hand raised in farewell. He had returned to his routines before I was even out of sight, I knew. Morning prayers for two. Breakfast for two. A day lived with double intensity, double appreciation, double love. Living for both. If Omar's story has moved you, if his devotion has touched something deep in your heart, I hope you will carry his words forward. Think about what it means to truly live, to be fully present, to experience each moment as the precious gift it is. And if there is someone in your life you love, tell them now. Show them now. Live for them now, while you still can. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me about your own experiences with love and loss and the way grief can transform into something sacred. Your stories matter. Your insights matter. We are all connected in this exploration of what it means to be human. And if you want to continue this journey with me, to discover more lives being lived in the forgotten corners of our world, I invite you to stay connected. There is so much more to learn about the extraordinary depths of the human spirit. Until next time, may you find something worth living for, and may you live for it with everything you have.